Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unscripted Intelligence. This is a podcast where we talk about human intelligence, artificial intelligence, how they intersect, and how they impact everything from education to the workforce.
On this podcast, we interview innovators, thought leaders, and change makers who are making waves and shaking things up. These are live conversations that are uncharted and unfiltered as we create space for what isn't being discussed. And these conversations, get ready, Arvin, are always unavoidable.
Thank you guys so much for listening and welcome to this episode.
I'm Dr. Michelle Ament, the co-president of the Human Intelligence Movement and the chief academic officer for ProSolve. The Human Intelligence Movement is a grassroots nonprofit that is dedicated to ensuring that we as humans have the uniquely human skills that we need to thrive and succeed in this AI world.
And my name is Arvin Ross, your other co-host, and I am the immersive learning designer and facilitator for the Human Intelligence Movement, as well as the co-founder for ProSolve.
And I am so excited, Arvin, for our continued series on what makes us uniquely human. And this series has been something that we've been building towards for a while now, which is really about centering the conversation in the human, but at the same time exploring about AI and how it's changing our world and what it means to live and thrive in this world as we reclaim humanity.
And in this series, we are actually taking the opportunity to spotlight risk takers and rule breakers that are rewriting leadership and rewriting learning in the intelligence age, specifically around being uniquely human. How are they keeping humanity at the center of a conversation that is dominated by voices that are promoting AI? So this is a community conversation, a chance where we can all come together and challenge the old rules, reimagine what's possible, and consider what human intelligence in the intelligence age could look like. So do me a favor, if you are in the chat, I know we got a bunch of people there. I'm hoping I see Mark on tonight. That's honestly a good thing I look forward to the most is Dr. Mark Zeeler going to hop in here and grace us with his presence. But if you're tuning in the chat, please do hop in here and introduce yourself. Share with us where you're watching from, and we'll have a couple more questions for you guys as we get started. So
to see who else is joining us tonight. And what I'm really excited about is to introduce our featured guest this evening that is joining us for this conversation. And here to join us tonight is Matt Winters. And Matt Winters is the AI education specialist for the Utah State Board of Education. And rumor is that he is the first full-time hire of his kind at the state level across the country. And so that's pretty cool. But so Matt has really written AI policy for the entire state of Utah. But before doing that, he was a 9th grade English and creative writing teacher. And today we are going to dive into really learn what it's like to be the Utah State Board of Education AI specialist. And he has written this policy called the Portrait. I don't even know if it's a policy. He's written the Portrait of an Infused Learner, where he not only upholds AI, but puts things like curiosity, creativity, critical thinking at the heart of what it means to be ready for an AI world. And this sounds exactly what the Human Intelligence Movement is all about. So I am so excited for this conversation.
Welcome.
It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me on your guys' show, and excited to talk about the work happening here in Utah and the things that we're doing to keep the human at the center of the conversation around AI.
I love it. And you're doing a phenomenal job. Let me just give a little bit of tidbit before we move into talking about wherever we're going to go today in this conversation. I met Matt at FETC just a few months ago and fell in love with this man and the work that he is doing. I heard him talk about his portrait of an AI-infused learner and an AI-infused educator. And as soon as he left our booth, I literally started Googling it and started looking it up and reading. And I was like, oh my goodness, why are other states not doing this? So that's one of the questions that I need answered today from you, Matt, and from everybody that's reviewing. But before we do that, I am curious, because you are actually a personality behind the scenes, and I don't know if everybody gets to see this often, so I'm going to take an opportunity to expose you a little bit. I want to know, what is your hot take, right? You've been in this AI space for a while. You've seen the hype cycles, the panic cycles, the policy scrambles, but I want you to give us your most unpopular opinion about AI in education. Like give us one that gets you in trouble at conferences. And while you're giving us that, I want everybody that's in the chat do the same thing. Give us your hot take about AI in education.
You prepped me a little bit to think about this, because I've been known to be the guy who's at conferences who's Dr. Doom. Like, I'll put the scary things on the table and go, here are all the scary points that we want to talk about. So I wanted to go with something that's a hot take, but I think it's a little bit more hopeful. We know that a starting point for most of our teachers across the country, especially if they have writing in their classroom, is plagiarism. That was a worry from almost day one. That's why, New York City public schools shut down AI. That's why there's been the big push. If we still talk to teachers that are new to AI, I'm worried about my students plagiarizing. Okay, we get it. Here's the thing. There's no better time in human history right now and no more importance put on writing than any other time in human history. If you want AI to do what you want it to do from a natural language standpoint, you have to be an amazing, focused, clear, concise, well-rounded writer. And so my hot take is, if more English language arts teachers or teachers that required writing took that as their standpoint of, I'm going to teach students how to write better through the lens of writing for AI, you'd actually have some really interesting outcomes because of it.
That is actually an interesting point, because I did get some AI guidance from an expert months ago, back in November actually, and he was teaching us about prompting. And when I tell you, I thought that I knew how to prompt my ChatGPT until I was actually taught by this guy. And I'm just, what you're making me think of is, I wonder what kind of lessons and activities that that the educators can design around learning how to prompt properly, and like designing bots that literally will reject a student's prompt if it's not like grammatically correct. Like, I'm wondering just what options could be out.
Yeah, I don't think it's okay. First of all, Matt, I think this is brilliant. And I haven't heard this yet, this idea that we need to be better writers. But it's not to me, Arvin, it's not about the grammar, the spelling, like we think about with writing sometimes. It's about, how do I formulate my ideas?
Yeah.
How do I communicate in writing that then gets the output that I'm looking for, so that it isn't a constant over and over again? And I think about, I'm really reflecting on myself as a writer and how I have maybe improved being really succinct and like direct and organized and have an outline of what I want, versus this rambling that I used to do. And it's not really about a structured prompt, but about how I'm getting my ideas into writing.
Well, let me add one more layer to this. We know from a pedagogical standpoint and from an assessment standpoint that if you can teach something, you know it. And a student who teaches a bot how to produce a good essay and knows all the different parts of more and evidence, they know how to do citations, and they can look through a document and go, hey, you did this right, but you didn't do this right. That's the student slipping into the teacher role, which means they actually know how to do that process. And so it's that weird standpoint of it. It slips the student into the role of the teacher in the classroom, but the student they're teaching is the bot, and the actual teacher in the classroom can go around and go, ooh, I can assess whether or not you're actually in that space. There's a colleague of mine here in Utah, University of Utah, Dr. Chang-Lu Lee, doing some amazing stuff with mathematics. And that's basically what his work has centered around with the University of Florida and the University of Utah, is how can we flip and constitutionalize bots? So instead of them being helper bots for students to understand math, it's the bot is being tutored by the student.
100%.
To understand what's going on.
Yeah, when you were talking, I literally thought, let's make an assignment where each student gets 3 AI bots that are like terrible students. Like one literally can't read, the other one is just like a class clown, and the one that's like an overachiever that's disinterested. And let's create a series of assignments where that student, the actual student, has to teach all 3 of those bots how to write or how to do math, right? Or how to do whatever, and then grade them based on that interaction. That sounds insane and amazing. Holy smokes.
We gotta give a little shout out to the folks joining us, and I want to make a connection with Alice Martinez, who is joining us, said, and is that the opportunity to move to some of those higher levels of blooms, and that now we can partner with AI instead of at those lower levels of learning. So I think that's does that track kind of, Matt, with what you're thinking about when we, when we teach someone how to do something, that is like the ultimate highest form of understanding, being able to synthesize something. So, okay, a couple other, Dr. Mark's here. Arvin, don't worry, he's here. He said he wouldn't miss it. Jason Blair's here again. So it's fantastic to see Jason. Donna Roper is my special friend calling in from Minnesota via LA. So I'm excited, Donna, that you're here. Alice, Maria from Eastern Pennsylvania. I wonder if Maria was at one of your events this last week, Arvin.
Ooh.
So Maria, it's great to see you. Arvin was out in Pennsylvania. I know Pennsylvania is a big state, but maybe. So
I can't even tell you where I was. I don't remember at all. My brain is still fried.
Michael, great to see you. So we got lots of people joining us for this conversation. Should we ask them what an AI hot take is?
Yes. While we move on to the next kind of topic area, everyone in the chat, do me a favor, toss in your most unpopular opinion about AI in education. Go ahead and toss it in the chat, and we'll circle to it whenever we finish kind of chatting about this next section. Here's my thought. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to give my unpopular, but you were ready.
Oh, yeah, no. You go for it.
I mean, mine is stolen from Aaron because I think AI literacy is a buzzword, and I tend to continue to use that from a while back. I think there's a lot of hype about AI literacy, and I think I've seen us gravitate more towards some of the use of AI in a more productive way than we were even 6 months ago. But I think just that feeling like if we do AI literacy, then we've checked the box and we're on track. I don't know, Matt, what do you think about AI literacy and that term?
I see where you're coming from with that, and I tend to agree with you. Like if we're just doing a check mark like we used to do with digital literacy, where it was like a training at the beginning of the year, you can't do that anymore. And AI literacy should bleed into AI fluency, but then it's a mix of a bunch of other things that are kind of in that process. So like data privacy literacy is a thing that has to be essential in the next couple of decades, if not the next couple of years, because we need to know where our data is going, and we're not a data sovereign country. A lot of times we don't always own what our data is doing. And so that's something that I think is very important, that it's recursive in those work-throughs. I think one of the big important subheaders here with AI literacy, though, and I've been pushing on this in Utah, and we're seeing some pushes nationally now, and I'll point to those here in a second, is we have a literal captive audience in K-12. Students have to be at school by law, and they have to go through AI literacy. But there is a whole population of people called parents who are in the workforce, or maybe not in the workforce, but are out there that don't necessarily are captive, and they're maybe not getting that AI literacy. And so we're still seeing some misdis and malinformation being propagated by parents unknowingly because they don't have that AI literacy. And so the U.S. Department of Labor just put out 2 weeks ago, or about a month ago, an AI literacy framework, which was, if you looked at it, it was fairly in key with any other AI literacy framework. It was fairly straightforward. But 2 weeks ago, during National AI Week, they put out the Make America AI Ready program.
I totally
Yes,
did.
yeah.
Did you guys do? Did you do it on your phone?
Yeah, I did.
Absolutely. And I got lucky enough to be on a panel with the guy who put the program together that same week. And the push with that was to do it on cell phones because 90% of Americans have cell phones. And so I applaud that we're trying to think through AI literacy, not just from an education standpoint with our captive students that have to be at school, but with every audience so that we can work it through together as a country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that. And that kind of leads into my hot take just a little bit. My hot take would be that AI, I'm hearing this conversation all the time, and so I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but my hot take is that AI, artificial intelligence, LLMs, are going to widen the achievement gap before it closes it. I hear a lot of people talking about AI being an equalizer and creating equity, but in my perspective, I think the individual students, particularly who have knowledge and literacy and access to AI, are going to use it as a force multiplier. Like they're going to run light years ahead, and then students who don't necessarily see it as often, or aren't getting the education and the literacy, the teaching, or don't have access to it, are going to fall behind even more and more and more. And I think that eventually, right, when we get policies in place, cough, cough, Matt, do more work in other states, as we get more legislation or more demand for AI to be utilized in a larger facet, I feel like then we'll start to see that gap close. But I think until then, those who have access are just going to light speed run, and then those who don't are going to be left behind.
Do you think it? So, like, I'm with you on what you said, Arvin, but I don't know that it's just about access, because I go back to what Matt said about literacy, and if I have strengths in being literate and being able to write well and being able to get the answers I need, that is an accelerator for me, and versus someone who doesn't have that. So I don't know that it's about access to AI as much as it is about your use.
Yeah, I think that access it is like a small part of it, right? Because anybody can go to ChatGPT and make an account right now for free for now. However, I think it's more so about like the awareness, the literacy, the efficacy of like learning how to do it. And again, we have students whose parents are all for it, and then we have students whose parents are absolutely against it, right? And I was even in our sessions yesterday, I was at the Pennsylvania AI Summit with Brett Rohr. Shout out to that guy and Candace. They are phenomenal. And we had some educators, some superintendents, and district leaders, and talking about how some of their own kids are completely against AI. Mind you, they're here at an AI summit, so they're bought in, and their kids refuse. Some kids refuse to touch it, don't want to see it, don't want to use it, and are just completely against it. And so I'm not saying necessarily access from the standpoint of do they actually have the ability to get it, but more so the perspective and the usage of it.
Yeah,
I think I'm just going to jump in. I think there's it's both.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have both layers in play, and there need to be work. I mean, look at the lessons we've learned from the digital divide, which is still there. I mean, we have to admit, like, and as a country, we still have a digital divide, and there are issues with that, whether it be when we talk about in schools. Some schools are not hardwired. Some of them don't have laptop computers in their classrooms, and I'm not talking about take-home devices. I'm talking about in classrooms to be able to be used by students. But then when you talk about at home, there's a lot of states that still have areas where there's no high-speed internet available. And so we really have to think about that digital divide. And if we add AI on it, it widens that gap of digital divide even farther, because you then have groups that, yes, they can access it through a cellular device, but is it the full thing? And are they actually able to do the work that other people are able to do with it who have access to high-speed internet and a laptop computer?
Yeah.
I would argue they don't. And so I think we need that AI literacy and continual AI literacy, but then we need to keep an eye on what's happening with our hardwired technology from a lot of different perspectives to make sure that what's happening and that it's getting out to the spaces that it needs to get out to.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Michelle, do you want to read some of the comments?
Yes, let's do a couple of hot takes. So Michael Morrison talked about an AI, what was the prompt again, Arvin? AI hot take, something that gets you in trouble at conferences. The AI will be used to personalize learning. So unpopular opinion, that we will use it to personalize learning. He talks about how learning is always better together. And learning by yourself is no fun. Could AI help build better teams? So that's interesting. Mark talks about how just this many AI fears have come from the unknown, and assuming safeguards are in place, his biggest concern is fostering the conditions and motivations for humans to keep thinking and connecting. And that is pretty scary that we could really just fold into ourselves a little bit. Alice talked about the need to design AI into assignments and assessments. Academic freedom in higher ed means that you choose whether you use AI, no more silos, and it's time to design. Let's see. So we got Donna says her hot take. She used to think it was all about domain expertise. And now I think it's more about poetry and philosophy. The idea being that it's not, you can connect with what's right in front of you, but do you know what's missing? And are you curious enough to uncover the thing?
That last post right there, I can't see the name on my end. All I see is LinkedIn user.
Donna.
Okay. Dr. Mark posted something a couple of weeks ago. He was at a barber, I think getting a lineup or something like that. And he was talking about how the barber mentioned a friend of theirs started a pressure washing business. And he was like, that must be really hard. And then the friend said, no, he uses drones to pressure wash. And I probably had the same look on my face when I was reading this that Dr. Mark had when he was writing it or when he was in that barber chair. And like the whole post was just centered around this idea of how does something like that create the space for more connection and more conversation and more human interaction. It was just a really interesting piece. But I think you're spot on, Donna, that if there has to be a correlation with that usage and that human connection at the same time. If it's not, we're missing something totally. So I'll say this. I know people in the comments and people watching are dying to hear more about what we talked about at the beginning in our little intro part. Matt, you wrote the guidance, the portrait of an AI-infused learner for your entire state. Let's just pretend like this is not some big deal, like we could just casually. This is a big deal. This is huge. You wrote the guidance for it. You wrote the documentation for it with, I'm sure, with a team of people. Can you walk us and our audience through what is actually in it? What does this mean? What does a portrait of an AI-infused learner actually mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back a few years. When I was in the classroom, I was approached by someone I deeply respect. Her name's Sarah Young. She used to work at the Utah State Board of Education. She said, hey, we're working on a project called The Portrait of a Graduate. Mm-hmm. Would you want to be part of the competency team? And I went, sure. And mostly because it was the person asking me, and she's one of those people you say yes to if she asks you to do something. And so I jumped feet first into that project where we had already developed, if you're unfamiliar with the Portrait of a Graduate, is the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that you aspire to in your system of education across the state or even in a district that a student will have when they graduate. So it can be things that are academically, rigorous and monitored, things like academic mastery, financial literacy, those sorts of things. And it can be things like respect, that are equally as important, but are harder to measure, and are aspirational in how we want to work with those students. And so I spent 2 weeks building the competencies, in fact, around respect, K to Gray, to really think about what this looks like in a variety of contexts. It gave me a bootstrap standpoint of what this project was and what its impact was on the state. And what I started to see is a lot of districts in my state and a lot of districts across the country starting to do this kind of work, and you can still see this evidence of it. So when I moved into working at the State Board of Education almost 2 years ago, my brain went, I want to tie my work and the work that I do with AI back to our Portrait of a Graduate, because I think it's such a monumental piece of not policy, but advisement in our state. And there's a lot of really good work that's come out of it. So had that in the back of my mind and started building a team in my head, pulled together 13 people for the day that we did this. We, by the way, did all this work in one day, which is incredible and very exciting.
Wow.
Those teachers or that group was higher ed professionals, K-12, special education, teachers, parents, students. It was a small group, but everyone was represented. And basically what we worked on was started first off with, this is our Portrait of a Graduate. This is what that is. Today, what we're focusing on are the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that a student and a teacher need to thrive in the world of AI. And we know that this is going to shift and change with the technology, because right now we're moving into the world of agentic. We may hit AGI sometime in the next couple of years as well, and that's going to shift this conversation deeply. So we know that this document, because it's not policy, it's aspirational, it's advisement, that it can be shifted and changed on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
We need to, which is very, very helpful for us to think these things through. And so we went through and basically built a big list of, here's everything you need to know. Here's everything that you have to have this disposition. And we started breaking those down into large quadrants. And so I'll put we can share the link in the chat and things like that, I'm sure. And I'll put that in the private chat here in a second for you guys. But the goal being that we would have some sort of portrait to help our students and our teachers across the state understand what kind of knowledge, skills, and dispositions they need to have to work through it. And so, as you pointed out, Arvin, there's things like curiosity, there's creativity, there's critical thinking, there's collaboration. Those don't go away. As a colleague of mine at the agency says, you can't 10x from zero. And so you want to collaborate with AI, you have to start with collaboration in some way, shape, or form to then 10x that out. But then it has things like prompt engineering. It has work around data security and privacy, AI literacy, integration. But perhaps my favorite portion is on the last page of both of them, which is adaptive application. Really thinking through what is digital discernment, giving it a role in your system, but then thinking about what the AI is doing in a particular context. Are you working with a student with a disability if you're a teacher, or are you a person with a disability? How does AI help you or hinder you in that situation? So a lot of deep thought, and we've done some great work sharing that out with our community, but there's we're just excited about the work we're doing.
Yeah. Michelle, were you gonna go? I feel like
I was really, this is what I heard, that you got a team of diverse perspectives together, and in one day you kind of brainstorm what are the skills, dispositions, mindsets people need to have. And I'm curious, like, what was the basis for what you came up with? Did you use research? Did you use AI? Did you just use lived experiences? And here's the other part of this. This was a while ago you did this. And so I mean, that's a lot of futuristic visioning that you had to do. So I'm really curious about the process, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a disciple of the Stanford Design School, using their futures methodology and thinking through things. I always try to think about, and I encourage the people I work with to go, let's not think about this fire, and we'll work on this fire that's happening right now, but what's the smoke down the road that we need to worry about?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important nuance in education that we often forget is there's something happening here, there's something happening there. Let's think about both and how to work those through. And so you're exactly right, Michelle. We did the work in April of last year. It was published in October. The people that we pulled were forward thinking as well, but also had deep specialty and expertise in some way, shape, or form around AI. So they were encouraged to come kind of tabula rasa, but they had already done some of their own research and thought processes around this and had done work in the field doing trainings and support in the higher ed and K-12 spaces. And so we kind of knew who these people were and what thoughts. One of my favorite people on the team, well, two of them, Emma Moss from Canyon School District here in Salt Lake City, Jared Covilli from Jordan School District in Salt Lake City. Jared was the first, comes from a district that was the first ones to adopt school AI and a full school AI system across the country. Canyons is doing some incredible forward-thinking work around, especially working with parents. And so having them in play and having the right people there to have those conversations, it was easier for me to just let them fly and go, what do we really need to think about, not just now, but in the next 3 to 5 years? And let's not future-proof the document, but give it some future-leaning tendencies.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big part of the process.
Can I just mention this? So you just mentioned creativity. I think it was creativity, curiosity, and critical thinking that you've kind of built into your portion of an AI-infused learner, right? That is language that the human intelligence movement uses, loves, is very, very near and dear to our heart. And we specifically use it because it describes what is irreplaceable, right? It's human skills. Was that intentional for you to put into your AI documentation, or was that something that you just discovered through the research? Was that we're going to make this fit, or was this like you're finding it? How was the decision-making process for putting those three things in there?
It was intentional, mostly because at the time it's kind of shifted a little bit to like cognitive offloading, but there was a big conversation about a year ago about critical thinking and AI destroying it. And my colleagues and I in Utah, and then a lot of other people I talked to across the country, we were going, this actually doesn't derail critical thinking. It actually encourages it if you're using the technology the right way. Like I think about, we have this wonderful charter school director or teacher down in Provo area here in the Salt Lake Valley. And he was struggling with this idea of how to implement it in his social studies classroom. And what he did is he encourage the students to go out and use artificial intelligence to ask any question they wanted to around the Vietnam War, which was the subject they were moving into. He knew that the students couldn't use that, and so he went, go and ask them any questions. But what ended up happening is he said, give me the transcript of your chat. And so he took all of those and he plugged them into one chat on an AI, and he was able to see what the students were asking and all the different things were going on. But then also he was able to pick out where there was some problems in the information they were receiving.
Oh, nice.
And so he was able to point to that and have an AI literacy conversation alongside critically thinking about what information was coming into his classroom. And so it was a very intentional thing, and it didn't come from me. It actually came from the table because they were so adamant that we have that in there. The creativity one kind of came from me, but again came from the table heavily because this is something we did a training program last year in the state of Utah that trained somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 teachers. And that was basically AI literacy, some fluency. But when we got extra time to work with them and sit with them and work with them on the tools that they had available in the classroom, that creativity factor was 10x very quickly, especially when I showed them like some weird, wild thing that I was doing. Like my favorite joke for about 6 months was, I'm afraid that this new generation of students aren't dying enough on the Oregon Trail of dysentery.
Yeah. Spot on. Yeah.
And so then I'd show them how to create an Oregon Trail style game, and the surge of, oh, I can do that now. I can flex that creative muscle. And then we're seeing that in real time with students who are doing some amazing, thoughtful projects with AI, but sometimes it's in spite of the dominant system. So we want to encourage that kind of thought process as we move forward.
I want to go back to something that Jason Blair said, because I think there's a connection here with what you just said. And he said, all of this talk around AI should make us pause to talk as a community about what is the purpose of school. The purpose of school today does not align with the world we live in. And I picked up, and tell me if I understood what you were saying about that. This student that made this amazing project didn't necessarily align with the dominant system. And I'm seeing a connection with what Jason is saying, because I think that, and we talk about this a lot with the human intelligence movement, that our school system is still stuck in the knowledge era, that we go to school to get information, to get a good grade on that end of the unit test, to move through the system, where I think an AI world completely changes that in the intelligence age, that we need to do more creative problem solving, that we need to be more curious, that we need to be solving novel problems and adding value to the world with the use of AI. Those are some of the purposes of school for me. Matt, what's your take on kind of the purpose of school, the dominant system, and some of the things with AI?
Yeah, such a great question, Michelle. So I think you're being generous when you say that our education system is stuck in the knowledge era. I would say we're stuck in a mechanized process of students that goes back to the Industrial Revolution. And I'm very much a disciple of Ken Robinson on that. And I always go back to him whenever I need some pushes here, is that we have to remember that there is the system of school and there's the process of learning. You can go into a classroom and you can see a teacher teaching when a student's sitting there, but it doesn't mean that learning is actually happening.
100%.
And his example is dieting. You know, you can be not eating, but are you actually losing any weight? That sort of thing. And so I always think about that when we talk about modern school is a student thriving because of the dominant culture or a teacher, or is it in spite of the dominant culture? And I think that's something that we really have to ask ourselves in the age of AI is, are we creating systems that help to level up our students and our teachers to that next stage of use, of understanding, of economic viability? Or are we pushing on mechanisms that will maintain status quo?
I want to toss that question out to the audience, and I'm going to try to rephrase it, or I'm going to try to capture it, but I'm probably going to fail at it.
I got you.
Okay, you do it, because you know.
Well, I mean, I think are our systems perfectly designed to get the results that they get? Comes up. We talked about that, I think, last week or the last. But it's really about. I want to go back to something you said, Matt, and I'm not doing a good job reframing the question, but like this idea of in spite of, like, right. I want to kind of just dig a little bit with where you were going with that. Are we doing it? Did you say in spite of, despite, or what? Can you go back to that?
Are there students like learning in spite of the system, or
yeah,
because of the system? I think is what.
Well, again, it's Ken Robinson. I'm cribbing from him a little bit here.
We love him. So
yeah. And it's educate how to, if you're in the crowd and you're not seeing How to Escape Education's Death Valley, go do yourself a favor and watch that tonight. But he talks about our teachers teaching and our students learning because of what's happening in a school or a policy environment, or is it in spite of what is happening in that space?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think some of the most innovative and really wonderful things that happen in education that really get us the most excitement are often in spite of the dominant system. And I know I'm part of a state role, but that's a lens that I bring to this work of, I think AI can really unlock and help students and teachers to do things that they've never been able to do before in a variety of contexts. So how do we help them to harness that instead of maintain the lens of the baseline lens that I talked about earlier of this is a plagiarism machine or this is a cheating machine? Well, I think about it. I said this on another podcast a while back, but I'll just repeat it here. I view AI as a creativity machine. It's 10xing my abilities that I would have been able to do in a classroom. And I really want to pass that on to our students as long as they are having that same kind of thought process as well. Yeah. And so I love creating the conditions. And I think this document, these pair of documents really situate us in a place where it's human first, human forward, but then also human creativity forward and ensuring that.
Well,
good. There you go.
Jason Blair, I want to point out, like, you two are on the same wavelength tonight, because he says creativity is still an enigma for most schools. They talk about it, but fail to create the conditions.
Yeah.
And then even Dr. Mark talked a little bit about how the traditional schools are out of touch with what it means to really be creative and move out of that compliance. So we're getting some conversation there. One of the things that that I wanted to just kind of throw in here is something I've been, and I want to, can I go here, Arvin? Or
yeah, go for it.
So one of the things I've been working on, Matt, is this idea about an AI ladder. And like, we start at a very basic consumption level. Like, I put in information, I get information out. And as we level up and move up into with the goal of our AI use being a thinking partner, but moving from that consumption to then being a collaborator, to then helping me discern and helping me judge outputs, to really that metacognition level where I am using AI to help me think about my thinking. And I think when you mentioned AI has helped you be more creative, I think that for me, creativity has come when I use AI as a thinking partner, and it helps me think about my thinking. And I think about those levels of use, and I wonder what your thoughts are on if it is a linear path. Like, do people have to learn consumption and then I collaborate and then I judge and then I move, or can we go right to thinking partner?
I think it's a good question, by the way, and I love your thinking around this. What I go to is I think that we're going into a space over the next year where we've spent the last 3 years in generative, and people are understanding generative. Now there's a lot of fear around generative. There's all sorts of things. Now we're moving into a space about agentic, where you can target ideas and thoughts. And I was listening to a researcher earlier today talk about, I tell my bot Swarm, that's the phrase he used, to target, make me more happy. And they go and do actions for him. And so one of the things we have to think about in that ladder is, yes, I don't know that it's a linear. I think there's linear progressions that are important there, Michelle. And I think that's where we get into, like, what is it, then fluency and literacy fluency, and then moving up the ladder. And then it gets to this thought partner stage. But then there's students and adults who are using this and jumping straight to thought partnership, and they're not understanding 100% of the ramifications of what that does. And I'm afraid that that's going to continue into the future. And I'm speaking from a non-education standpoint right now, but more of an economic standpoint. When we talk about agentic AI, it's really easy to target that to do trading on the stock market, or do any number of, like, kind of economically motivated activities. And we've seen documented proof of kids as young as 10 or 15 making bot swarms, or like putting together multiple computers and making a ton of money overnight.
Yeah.
And so it creates a question of, I saw a great presentation earlier this week at the thing I was at, where the question about AI wasn't should we, it's could we, or could we, or should we?
Yeah.
And I think that's really one of the questions about that ladder that we have to get to when we get to the upper echelons is, I could use AI for this, but should I?
Yeah.
And I think that's
a great question.
Yeah. And I think that's something we're going to run across more and more and more as agentic becomes easier to build, more powerful, and honestly more available to us in classrooms. Because taking it away from economics for a second, let's put it in the classroom theoretically for a moment. If a teacher who has low understanding, is on that low end of that ladder, walks into an agentic space, and the swarm says, I can make your entire Canvas course for you, tip to tail in about 2 hours. Do you want me to do that? There's going to be a lot of educators that will say yes to that. And that's a question. Should I?
Yeah.
I can, but should I? I think that's a really interesting point.
Well, and Michael Morris and says AI is a worker. It can be a thinking partner, but it generally gives general consensus on ideas. So for him, AI agents go out and do a bunch of things for me and let it work. And I think that's a great question to even, to Michael, like, should it? Like, I don't know the answer, but it's something for me I've been toying with, because when the human isn't in the loop of the process producing and it's just out there making and giving, I feel like there's something missing. And I've really been grappling with those outputs and what that means and where do I want to use it or not use it. And I personally haven't come up with a good use case for myself to go build like Claude co-work to go do something for me. And maybe I'm missing a use case, but there's something there that's sticky for me. And I think it gets to your question, should I? Like, what am I doing that should I give it to Claude co-work to go produce?
And what are you giving up when you do that as well?
Yes.
And just a quick aside, Michael, I saw your comment here about who's the boss in this situation. And I think that's an interesting question. There was an article recently that I read. I can't remember the outlet. I'd have to go look it up. But the question or the root of it was, is agentic AI going to make all of us just middle managers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meaning that the AI would be the boss?
No, we would be the boss of a swarm of agents, just a lot like a middle manager.
Got it.
So we're doing that work to report to a human boss, but underneath us is the swarm of AI agents that we work with.
I love that question, and it makes me think of a question that I think our entire audience would actually. I think I want to toss this out to everybody in the audience in the chat as well. I want everyone to answer this question. How does one decide if they should or when they should use AI or use agentic AI? Do you have any guidance? I mean, I know you've written the portrait of an AI-infused learner, and we didn't talk about this yet, but the portrait of an AI-infused educator. And then word on the street is you have two other portraits coming out a little bit later. Three other. Okay, we need to hear about that before we leave. But can you give us any guidance? And can anyone in the chat share with us how do you make the decision on if you should use agentic AI or not for something?
I think, well, first of all, we updated if you're interested, the link that we put in the chat actually is to our AI page at schools.utah.gov. We actually just updated our AI framework document. It was the first time it was updated in about a year and a half, and I was very deliberate in that thought process. Partially because agentic, when I moved into this role, was still kind of this, is this going to be big or not? Like, we think it is. There's a lot of hype. And now we're seeing the fruits of that. It is something that's bigger, and we really need to consider it. And there's people that are managing massive swarms. And so that's actually accounted for in our framework now. And there's a glossary of terms and things like that advise teachers on that. The biggest thing that I would say is you have to consider whether you're from an economic standpoint or an educational standpoint, what are you giving up when you use these tools? Are you handing over your agency as a person in some way, shape, or form? Or is it just doing something that you're offloading that would free you up to do something more human and have more human interaction? It's really that give and take that you have to consider, and it's something that I think all of us are going to have to wrestle with in some way, shape, or form. And there may be some policies that are from the federal or state governments that come down the pipeline around it as well, because there will be limits on things that happen with it, just like any other technology. But I think at the core, if you ask that question, you're saying, I'm giving a lot up about what it means for me to be a human. Reconsider what you're doing there.
I absolutely love that. And Michelle, before you go, I would love for you to answer that question as well. I know people are still typing in the chat, but what would you guide or what would you share with anybody on when or how to know if you should as well? I love Matt's answer, and I feel like we're producing some really, really, really good thought leadership here.
Yeah, I was going to, for me, I think it really is about where do I want, I don't know, where do I really want that human in the loop? like, where do I want to, like, I'm not comfortable with it's producing and I'm going to go get the document versus the iterative conversation that I'm in with my AI. And it takes so much more time, but it comes back and I read it and then I ask another question and I explore this angle or ask for that. And I don't quite, and it could be that I don't quite understand how to get an agent to do all of that for me. But that is the piece that I'm cautious about, because I want my voice and my thinking throughout the process.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm hearing from you, your litmus test is more so about the process and the engagement with the content, or the content and your agent, than it is the end result. So your litmus test is, I'm going to use it when I can have that iterative conversation, not when I just want to produce something that's easy. Is that accurate?
It is. And I think what Matt said about agency really strikes me. Like, an end thing that I produce, I want to know that I had, 80, like the bulk of it came from me, and that I have that agency. So I think that for me, probably. What
Yeah.
about you?
I was just thinking about that. I feel like, to answer the question, what would I share about how to know when you should or should not use agentic AI or use it? I think it has to do with the purpose, the end in mind, right? That's like me and Travis and I stick is, if my goal is to learn something, then for me, that is a great opportunity for me to engage with one of my bots, right? If my goal is just to produce something quick, I really don't want that to be like my reason for my relationship with AI. And I feel like a lot of people do that the opposite, where it's like, I want to do it to save time. And for me, as someone who is heavily focused on like just adaptability and like utilizing my street knowledge, I love the idea that you can move quickly with artificial intelligence to produce great things. I personally have kind of a conviction about leaning into what's really human. And I feel like I would be a fraud if I'm standing up in front of educators and superintendents and people at these conferences and these summits and saying, let's keep it human. And then every chance I get behind closed doors, I'm not keeping it human. And so for me, there's a sense of efficacy. And again, I'm not saying I do,
Integrity.
Yeah, integrity. There you go. I'm not saying I don't use it, because I do, but like you said, Michelle, there has to be, for me, a component of learning for me, that it's instilling something in me so that I might not even have to go back to it for the next time I have to do this. That's just for me. That's what I would say.
Well, wow. Well, the chat's on fire. So
Yeah.
a couple of things. Mark is talking about agency is so critical. And as AI continues to advance, how much as humans are we willing to give away that we'd be far better served holding on to? I think that's a really great question. Up here, Jason Blair talked about, for him, does using agentic AI help me feel like I matter? Does it help me find value in who I am? And does it help me add value to the other humans in some capacity?
Yeah.
Mark, this is a whole nother topic, like a whole nother episode, but I'm going to throw it out here because I want to see what Matt says. But basically, where did it go? What about the accountability piece? Who's answering to what if and when something goes wrong when it was built by an agentic AI? I don't know. What do you think about? What's your take on that, Matt?
That's a massive one right there. I mean, let's take it down a level for just a second with agentic, because I think it's too fresh to really say too much about it from a policy standpoint. But let's talk about vibe coding for a second.
Yeah.
Vibe coding is an incredibly powerful thing, because you can really get to some really buildable spaces. But when you then build something that you don't understand how it was built, and may or may not have malicious code in it, if you deploy that with a user, who's accountable there? Is it the AI, because it used what it knew and some malicious code base, or is it you as a human who are going to suffer the economic issues there? And I think that's one of the things that we have to really consider is who's going to end up, if something goes wrong, who's going to have to pay the price? And usually it's the human in the system.
Yeah.
I think it, hell yeah, it better be the human, because we can't put an AI in AI jail or something like that. It is your fault, sir and ma'am. It is your fault. You're going to jail. I mean, I'm just thinking about all of the potential cluster Fs. Let's just be real, that can happen when I'm thinking about people using AI in healthcare. And like I think I even have there's an AI chat bot in my I don't think I can say the app on here, but in like my healthcare app. And I'm just wondering, like, what if, could you imagine if it tells me, if I'm like, oh, I have a headache, and it actually tells me I have cancer, right? It's one thing when Google does it. It's a whole nother thing when there's like a supported healthcare app that, I don't know. I'm
And Arvin, I'm going to blow your mind just for a second, because in Utah, we are lucky to have what's called the Office of AI Policy. They're a sister organization to a lot of groups, and like myself, who do work in the Department of Commerce. In January, they approved a very selective amount of things that a bot could do to prescribe some medication. And so these things are happening. These policy decisions are happening in real time.
I saw that. I just recently saw an article on that.
Yeah, Dr. Zach Boyd and the team over there. And they're working on other things around that. So this is one of the things I just want to remind people of towards the end of this, is that yes, policy can be slow, but it also can be extremely fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to really remind ourselves, as we're experiencing these massive technology changes, that we have to think through the implications of these. And somewhere, someone is probably creating a policy around it.
Yeah. I love it. I did not even realize that we were 57 minutes into this conversation. I feel like we just started. I don't feel like this is fair. We've been cheated. Somewhere that time just picked up. Michelle,
there's so many comments in that I haven't even lifted up, but I got, like, Michael, I got to hear about this song. Like, Michael wrote a song about lyrics and a song. So you got to send me that. Like, I don't know what that is, but I'm very excited to see. There's so many great comments and ideas spinning, but we should start to wrap things up, Arvin.
We should. So we're going to go ahead and dip into the UTT, our
unavoidable truth time.
My mind is just so into this conversation. I need everyone in this chat, and Matt as well, and Michelle, myself, we're going to share an unavoidable truth. What is something, especially in this conversation, that was surfaced, or that you were made aware of, or that you maybe even said that just kind of flowed out of your mouth, that is an unavoidable truth, something that might be uncomfortable to certain people, or that might be uncomfortable to the system, something that no matter how much we try to avoid it or stuff it down, it continues to pop up. I would love to get an opportunity and to have everyone in here share, what is your unavoidable truth that you've discovered from this episode?
I think for me, it's really easy. And it's really about just leaving with that idea of, when I use AI, what is it taking from me? Like, really being cognizant of, is my use now taking agency from me, taking something from me, or is it adding to my human advantage? Is it leveling up my potential? And I think really just being aware of that, and when you're using AI, is something that I'm walking away with, because at the end of the day, every time I open that app, every time I'm using AI, it should be to advance me as a human, really elevate my human skills, and add value to the world. So that's what I'm leaving with. How about you, Matt or Arvin?
Arvin, go for it.
Okay, I was gonna say that kind of leads into mine a little bit, and I think mine is it might clash with yours, Michelle, a little bit. I'm not exactly sure, but for me, the unavoidable truth would be that every person needs to kind of define what is there when I should or should I for themselves. I've never you surfacing that question, Matt, in this conversation made me have to really do an inventory to even dredge up the words that I shared, because I've never consciously or metacognitively thought about that. That's how I think about it. But talking about it and doing that made me really think that is important to me. It is. I am a very growth mindset oriented person. I'm very much, a purpose driven person. And so for me, that me articulating that is my litmus test, my should. I think every person needs to do that for themselves, and start from there whenever they're talking about AI usage. That's my unavoidable truth.
I think ours are the same, just
Okay.
worded differently. I really do.
All right.
Well, I can take it in a different direction then. I think mine, as we go through this whole conversation and anything that we're doing, is the unavoidable truth is that this is moving at the speed of industry. And we have to really think through, as we go through the process of integrating this, not just into our school lives, but our personal lives, our economic lives, our healthcare lives, is that it's going to move faster than we ever planned on. And the unavoidable fact is that it's going to move faster than we're prepared for. Mm-hmm. So staying up to date, thinking things through, and helping those that don't have the same thought process as us, or the same ability to keep track of this, to navigate this, is going to be incredibly important over the next couple of years.
Couldn't agree more. I love it. I love it. So there's a couple more people that are chiming in. Can you read them? You have to read Michael's. I love his statement about this is his first time participating. I feel like I want more. I hope to connect with you guys. Absolutely. If you keep on commenting, we might just pull you live on air one time. So make sure that you're camera ready next time you're here. Michelle, do you want to hop into the other one?
And Michael, join the human intelligence movement. Maria talked about articulating when we should or shouldn't is everything. Mark talked about, as AI continues to evolve, humans have to intentionally make mental and physical space to keep connecting, thinking, and adapting. Especially vital. I think it's interesting how he talked about physical there, like mental and physical. That's a whole nother thing about screen time and time behind computers and so on. So I think that's something to tap into. We got Mark coming up here in a couple of weeks, and so maybe we can talk more about that. So that's what we've got for some unavoidable truths.
I love it. I love it. So as we kind of close out today, Matt, how can the audience follow you and learn more about your journey and keep up to pace with all of the light speed work that you are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first, I just want to put that out there. I put a link in the private chat if you guys want to put it in the comments for me. We did do a couple other portraits. The one that's out right now is Portrait of an AI-Ready Business. We did this with the Responsible AI Initiative at the University of Utah. So that's out already. Knowledge, skills, dispositions, and assets that a business might need to thrive. We're then working on, we just finished up and is going through editing process, Portrait of an AI-Ready Professor, Portrait of an AI-Ready Researcher at the college level. Those will be out sometime over the summer, and we're trying to create an ecosystem of documents here in the state that kind of guides aspirationally what's happening. So to find out more about those, check out the links. But then also, I'm on LinkedIn, and you guys are obviously on there as well. Find me on there. Teacher Winners is part of my URL. And then my email is matt.winners@schools.utah.gov. And I'm more than happy to have a conversation with anyone and everyone about what's going on with this work, and hopefully learn something along the way as well.
Matt, I'm going to have to fight you. I'm going to have to fist fight you. I didn't know you did something for an AI business, and I just clicked your link and I'm looking at it. Michelle, this is so in line with our company values. Like the skills, this is just, okay, another conversation for another day, just entrepreneurship and running a bit. I am all for this.
Well, and the people who built that one, it was a wild room. I'll just throw this out there. It was the people that were listed on the website, but then we also had representations from like NVIDIA and Oracle and a lot of large scale companies. And they came in and did a full day, again, built it in a day, and were able to get this published. And it's such a monumental shift in understandings, because it could be used for a small startup to a multinational corporation, and understanding what we need in the world of AI.
I can't wait to dive in.
Yeah.
I want to just give one shout out to the 3rd annual Thought Leaders AI Summit that Matt will be at in June in Minnesota, St. Cloud. And Donna is working really hard to put that on. So you can take a look at AIforMN.org. So Matt, you're speaking, and that's going to be great to have you bring your portrait of all the things that you do portrait of to the conference. So check that out. And I'll share who's on next week. Time. We are not coming together next week, but we will be together April 23rd at 6:00 Eastern time. We have Dr. Mark is in the house, Casey Watts, and Dr. Deshaun Washington. So that is a group coming together to talk about uniquely human, and I cannot wait for the conversation. Matt, it has been a pleasure. We continue to see in the chat, people want round 2. They want to continue to learn from you. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate the conversation tonight. And anytime, I'm happy to come back anytime with you guys.
We will definitely have you back. Keep in mind, you guys can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, LinkedIn Live, YouTube. We even have a little TikTok. Thank you so much, Jenna, for putting all this together. Being our producer, you make all this stuff happen. If you want to learn more about how to sponsor this podcast and how to hop in and connect with the vision that we are doing, hop over to the humanintelligencemovement.org, and there's more information there for you. Thank you guys so much for hopping in, and we will see you all in 2 weeks.